All right, our next DIY is the one that almost took me out. This is our welcome sign. So I had 2 black frames already just in my stash. So what I'm gonna do first is take a paint stick, and I'm gonna use my miter shears, and I'm just gonna cut off the rounded part so that I have a straight part. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to paint the paint stick with just black chalk paint that I got at Dollar Tree, just so that it matches my 2 black frames. And the black frames, I don't know what size they are, to be honest with you. I had them just laying around in my stash, and I don't know, I want to say they look kind of like maybe 14 by 14. They're very square, but honestly, I'm not exactly sure. They were just sitting in my craft room, so I'm not exactly sure what size they are. But anyway, I had 2 of them. There's my little dog again. Then I used my Cricut, and I used red, white, and blue vinyl to make this welcome sign. I'm just going to use my ruler to find the middle, somewhat kind of the middle. I'm not a mathy person, so don't do anything with me on my math. It's probably not correct, but somewhat the middle. And I just went ahead and I smoothed this down with my smoothing tool, just to have my vinyl stick onto my paint stick. I didn't show this part in the video, but I did use my sanding block just to sand off the end that I cut, just so that it's nice and smooth. There's no like splintery parts or anything on that other end. And this DIY project, like in my mind, this came to me in a dream. I know that's weird, but this came to me in my mind late at night, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be so easy. It's literally just 2 picture frames glued together with stuff in the middle of both of them, and it's gonna be so easy. Oh my gosh, you guys, this thing almost took me out. This did not go to plan in any way, shape, or form. But you know what? That's what DIY is all about. And you go with it, and you pivot, and you do what you can, and you make it work. All right, so this is a sign that I got at Dollar Tree. Just a cute little fireworks sign. You can use whatever sign you want. It doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that it's lengthwise, that it's enough so that it will fit between your picture frame. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take more of this ribbon. You'll recognize this ribbon that we did the peekaboo cups with. And I'm just going to use it. I'm just going to tie a bow. And this ribbon makes it nice. It's got wire on both the top and the bottom of the ribbon, and so it makes it nice to tie this bow because it kind of sticks in place, so you can kind of futz around with it and make your bow kind of as floofy and as fluffy or as bowy or as you can kind of make the bow however you want it. Okay, so we've got our welcome stick, we've got our sign, we've got our 2 frames, and now we've got a bow. We're just getting our pieces together here is what we're doing. Okay, beautiful. I promise at the end this is gonna come together, but I swear it's gonna all fall apart. It has to get worse before it gets better. Okay, so this is kind of the beginnings of how this is gonna come together here. All right, now we're going to take a jar. This is one of these iridescent jars that they have at Dollar Tree. And we're gonna take some Mod Podge, and we're going to just line the sides of this iridescent jar with the Mod Podge. Then you can see I have some red, white, and blue confetti. And then I also have some red, white, and blue little foam balls, and I couldn't decide which one I wanted to do. I ended up using the confetti, which I think was a good choice. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a little bit of the confetti, and it's very messy, so just kind of go easy on it. You just need a little sprinkle. And you're going to shake it, shake it, shake it, and it's going to stick to the Mod Podge. And it's kind of going to give a little sparkly effect on the sides of this jar. And you can kind of see how it sticks to the side of the jar, and it kind of gives this little glittery effect, which is kind of cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the end of a solar light. This is just one of those straight stick solar lights, and I took off the solar light part, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the solar light into the jar. And unfortunately, the solar light itself is slightly, and I mean slightly, too small for the mouth of the jar. And so I had to use hot glue and hot glue it into the mouth of the jar. And so that's why I'm doing it one side first and then getting it to kind of stabilize and stick there, and then I did the other side. I even actually have the rim of the solar light, the silver metal rim on the solar light to try and give it more width, and it still was just so very slightly too small. But it's fine, it worked out, and the hot glue of course got everywhere and burned the snot out of my fingers, but it was fine. And then I let that dry. And so now, in theory, what is going to happen is when the solar light comes on, it's going to light up that iridescent jar, and it's going to have a sparkly red, white, and blue kind of glittery effect when the light comes on. So my thought at this point is I wanted to wrap the jar in this these beads, these red, white, and blue beads, but it didn't work out. And so I pivoted at that point, and I'm just letting the solar light dry, just letting it dry. Now these are popsicle sticks, and they're kind of the jumbo fat ones, and I'm cutting them in half. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue them in a stack. And the reason I'm doing this is because I need a way for the solar light to sit inside of my frame. And the frame itself is too thin. And so I need a rest, or a little platform, for the solar light jar to sit on. And so I'm going to create that by using these jumbo popsicle sticks. And I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue, and I'm just going to stack these up, and I'm going to make just like a little popsicle stick rest thing. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just stacking these one on top of the other, and I'm just making kind of a little platform for my solar light jar. I use so much hot glue in this project. Oh my goodness. Oh, hot glue everywhere, my goodness sake. And this part of this actually worked out really well. I did make the platform a stick too big, and so it stuck up too high, and so I ended up having to pop off one of the, see that stick sitting right there at the top? Dang it, I shouldn't have put it on, because I ended up having to pop it off and rip it off because it was too high. Anyway, so then I turned the frame backwards, and I hot glued my little platform onto the back of the frame. And you can see it's just like a little platform that the jar can sit on. And I ended up painting my stick platform. I ended up painting that black with just the same black chalk paint from Dollar Tree that I painted the paint stick stir at the beginning in. It's just the same thing. Then I'm using just a little bit of twine, and I'm just wrapping up the kind of mouth of this jar. I was going to use those beads again, but that wasn't working out, and so I decided to pivot, and I decided to use this twine instead. And this ended up working really nicely, and so I'm just basically wrapping the kind of neck of this jar in the twine, and burning my fingers in the process, of course, because that's what I do. All right, so the twine is wrapped around the neck of the jar, and then that kind of needs to dry and set up. And at this point, I don't show it in the video, but at this point, I was patting the hot glue and the twine to get it to stick, and the solar light, the black part of the solar light, fell into the jar, and just the ring, the silver ring, was left glued to the mouth of the jar. And so I had to fish it out, and then I had to glue it in. Oh my gosh, you guys, this project. Okay, anyway, now is the time that I'm using hot glue and E6000, and I'm going to glue my jar onto its little pedestal, onto its little popsicle stick rest. And I'm using both because I want the quick set of the hot glue, and then I want the strength of the E6000. Then I'm going to go ahead and hot glue my sign onto my second frame. And I'm just, you can put it wherever you want. I'm just kind of centering it in the frame. But you can, I thought about maybe putting it a little bit cattywampus, a little bit crooked. That might be kind of cute. But I just, in the end, I just decided to put it straight and kind of in the center. So that's what I ended up doing. And I'm just using hot glue for this one. It's not super heavy. It's a very light kind of placard sign, and then I'll just turn it over, and then I'll just reinforce it with a little bit more hot glue on the other side of the frame. You could definitely use some more E6000 though if you wanted to reinforce it and have more strength. Okay, and then this fun part. So I really did want to use these beads, and so what I ended up doing is I centered the beads onto my jar, and then I ended up gluing a couple of the beads so that they rested just on the front of my jar. I cut off the ends because I didn't need that USA medallion, and I didn't need the tassel. I just wanted the beads. And so I cut those parts off, and I used little binder clips so that I wouldn't lose my beads. I should have just left the ends on until I was done, but whatever. And then I just hot glued a couple of the beads onto the front of my jar, like so. And then my thought, what I wanted this to do is I kind of wanted them to drape. And so in my head, the welcome sign and the bow was going to be at the top, and then I wanted the beads to drape down from the welcome sign and kind of drape along the front of my jar. And so you'll kind of see that I'm hot gluing the ends of the beads kind of where the welcome sign is going to cover it, so that it looks like the beads are kind of draping down or hanging down from the welcome sign. And so I basically just glued the ends of the beads onto the frame, and then I glued the welcome sign on top of that, but not on top of the beads, if that makes sense. So the beads are hanging from the frame, and then the welcome stick is just covering it, and it's being glued onto the frame as well, and so the beads are just kind of hanging freely behind it. I don't know if that makes any sense. Hopefully you can see what I mean by that. And then I just let that dry. Again, I'm just using hot glue, but you could use E6000 as well if you wanted to reinforce it. Then I stuck the bow on. Okay, y'all. Then I had to somehow get these two frames together. And so you can see I have red solo cups on every single corner. And then I had to support my jar because I didn't want it to fall off. And so I have paper towels and wood blocks underneath my jar. And I'm using E6000, no hot glue. I'm just using E6000 to glue the two frames together. And in my mind, this was going to be so easy, right? Like I was just going to glue one on top of the other and it wasn't going to be any big deal. This was so hard. Like the top frame with the jar on top was heavier than I thought it was going to be. And so I really needed to make sure that that was supported, because otherwise I was going to lose the jar just to gravity. And so I had to make sure everything was supported. And I needed to support it horizontally because I couldn't support it vertically, because that never would have worked. The frames were too skinny. And so I had to do it this way. You have no idea, you guys. Oh my gosh, this thing about killed me. I was pivoting so much with this project. I am surprised I didn't get dizzy with how many circles I was spinning. So anyway, I used clamps to clamp it together. And then I let it dry overnight, a good 24 hours. I was not about to take this thing apart and have it fall apart on me. I was done with that. And then this is how it turned out. So in the end, it actually did come out how I wanted it to. I did add those 3 little stars to the bottom of the jar just for decoration purposes. You don't need to add them if you don't want to. And you can embellish this however you want to. But you can see that the jar comes on, and then here it is outside in front of my front door. And I just rested it against my little corner here with my plant and my candle. You can see my front door is not conducive to hanging. If you wanted to hang it, I would recommend really making sure that you have something strong to hang it with, because it is kind of top heavy. And so you want to make sure that you have lots of strength there. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Here it is in the dark. It looks so cute, doesn't it? Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments.